Awesome.
Awesome. Hello, Danielle. Hello, everyone. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. Really happy to be here with you guys today. CUNY, going to CUNY and working through CUNY was a major turning point in my life throughout my college career. So I'm super excited to give back and talk to everyone and help them learn from my journey from where I started to where I am today.
Awesome. Can you give us a little bit about your elevator pitch? A little bit about yourself.
I got you. So my name is Taizhier Green. I attended Lehman College. I graduated and got my bachelor's in accounting from Lehman College. Actually, when I was on campus, I participated in the Alpha American Latino Professionals for America group, and I was also part of a radio show that we did on, I believe, Tuesdays and Thursdays at the time. It was super cool. And now I'm a treasury analyst at Greenbacker Capital here in the Big Apple, NYC.
Awesome. What is Greenbacker Capital?
So Greenbacker is a renewable energy investment company, operator, and developer. So when you think of solar panels, windmills, so it's essentially what we do, but we do it on a huge scale. So they have these things called solar farms and wind farms. We have huge fields, acres and acres long, full of solar panels or full of windmills and so on. We kind of develop those projects and those assets, finance them, and we're helping usher in the clean energy change for the foreseeable future, since I'm not sure how connected everyone is with our local government mandates and so on, but places like New York City have mandates for a certain amount of our industry, especially real estate buildings, have to be green, which means they cannot be harmful to the environment, and a whole other list of environmental impact factors that they have to make sure they meet all the requirements on. So essentially, we're an investment company and an operator and a developer in that space. So ushering in energy transition while creating value for our shareholders.
Awesome. And how did you get involved in this work?
So you want me to start from the beginning? All right, so we got to start from the beginning. So it all begins back when I was 16 years old. So I grew up in an urban working class neighborhood right outside of the Bronx, Mount Vernon, New York. And I grew up there. I lived there for most of my life. And among other things, city is known for its arts, culture, history, so on, but not so much scholastic or academic success per se. You have some superstars that came out of there, but for the most part, sports and entertainment is really what the city is known for. So when I was growing up and I was going through school and everything, I had an idea, like, abstractly, like, hey, I want to go to college, I want to do the whole thing. But I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do. So in the middle of my high school career, my family actually moved to a upper middle class suburb in Westchester, and that kind of was a complete shock to my system because it was a complete different way of life than I was used to. And one of the biggest things I noticed was the push on college, the push on professional success, the push on getting ready for success very early. That was something that I wasn't aware of and I wasn't focused on at the time. So once I got to that place, I was like, wow. I remember my first day, I reach on the campus, I just look around and I take everything. I'm like, I feel like I was in a TV show. So I'm like, okay, this is what we're doing. All right. So it took me some time and I started to talk to other students. I talked to the staff and really started to understand the culture of the place that I was at. I'm like, okay, I'm somebody new, I'm brand new. I got to see how everything goes. So I know when I'm rocking the boat and when I'm not. So how everything goes. So I'm like, okay. And I started to understand that. And that's when I started to notice this huge focus on professional success. Hey, we're in high school right now, but you're in high school because you want to get to college. You want to do well so you can potentially get good scholarships, get accepted into good schools, and do that whole thing. So it took me a while to pick up on the seriousness of it because I was young, about 16, 17. So my mind was elsewhere, but it was in the back of my head. But also during that time, I started to, and this is part of my own ego and insecurity at the time, I needed to find a differentiating factor because I realized I was around a whole bunch of kids that for the most part came from upper middle class families and have been that way their whole lives, and grandparents and so on. I didn't have that experience. So I often felt like the odd one out when, people are talking about like their childhood and their upbringings or where they summer here, where they did this, and I would just sit and listen. Okay, interesting. So that made me push to understand financial literacy. So I kind of went crazy to understand financial literacy because I wanted to create the same circumstances for myself to be able to live in the same types of neighborhoods, have the same opportunities and do the same kind of work as these students' parents did. And I noticed the creation of professional networks that they were involved in, even as high school students. So whether someone was a superstar or not, they automatically had connections to get involved with careers and jobs after school. So I started to see all of that. So I went crazy in the books. I bought every book you could think of, from Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki to History of the Black Dollar by Andrew Rich. And I want to really get a firm understanding of financial literacy so I could take myself to the next level. So that's what I did. And I really went hard on that from the end of my high school career and then going into college. So at the time going into college, I really didn't know what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So I didn't know what my major was. But I did know that I didn't want to get into a whole bunch of debt because I got scholarships, but I didn't get big enough scholarships that would allow me to not pay too much back. So I made a choice and I went to SUNY Westchester Community College in Valhalla, New York. And I did my first 2 years, my degree there, and my associates. And while there, aside from my schoolwork, spent a lot of time on campus, having fun, meeting people, getting involved in clubs and everything like that. But it was kind of just advanced high school for me at the time, how I viewed it. I really wasn't taking it super seriously, and I really didn't understand the consequences that my actions had, good or bad. And so I went and I continued and I graduated and got my associates. And once I did that, something kind of clicked in my head because at the time I was working at a supermarket. I was kind of doing a little bit of everything there. And I kind of talked to them because they had a small accounting department and I didn't even really have my degree yet, but I kind of finessed them into letting me do their accounting work. I'm like, hey, I'm getting my associates in accounting. I can do this. So I go and do that. And then I quickly realized, I'm like, I do not want to be here, definitely working here for the rest of my life. I'm really not interested in this space of these people or any of this. I'm like, okay. So at the time, I was looking for 4-year schools and I found Lehman. I had a couple of friends that went to Lehman. They had great things to say about the school. So I'm like, okay, let me apply. And so I applied to Lehman. I got in the program. Everything was great. So once I touched Lehman's campus, I was on a completely different paradigm. I was very serious about what I wanted to do, what I wanted to see, and how I wanted my life to look like. Soon as I got there, I got involved with Alpha, again, the American Latino Professional, excuse me, Association Latino Professionals for America. And getting that program was amazing for me at the time because it was a great showcase for professional development, going through resume training, going through interview training, going in, touring different companies and people, meeting recruiters, meeting professionals and getting firsthand experience from them and understanding what the professional world is like and how to make yourself ready for that and how to actually go ahead and get there. So I made sure along with my schoolwork that I was super involved on campus. I would even take off work some days to stay on campus longer, even study there just so I can meet more people, make more connections because I was like, I need some opportunities because I need to make sure I take it to the next level. So within doing that, I was able to secure some internships at 3 key companies that helped me a lot. Number one, EY, that's Ernst & Young, one of the big 4 accounting firms in the world. I did the summer internship there. I interned at Google as well. That was a great experience as well, meeting the people at Google, meeting the other candidates as well at the time, and kind of getting a feel for my peers and like where we were at, everyone was at. And mind you, just in the middle of the pandemic. And then the internship that actually stuck out the most, which contributed the most to my professional career now, which was at a private equity real estate company called DRA Advisors. So essentially what they did is raise capital from high net worth individuals and institutions and went out and bought real estate properties. So I interned there in the portfolio management department, which is very similar to like accounting at any other company, but it was specific because it's real estate. So it has very specific inputs. So I interned there and I really kind of fell in love with the investment model, which is super cool with me that you could raise money from these people, go out and buy projects, and then these projects make money, and then you make money from the projects making money, and you have to put very little of your own capital in. So that really excited me. The whole idea of that fascinated me. So as I'm going through my internship, I'm making sure, number one, I'm working extremely hard. I'm killing it. I'm making connections, making sure I'm respectful, appreciative, thankful of everyone, and making sure I do that whole entire process. So what ended up happening was the gentleman whose name is Ken Thomas, which you guys probably have seen on other community platforms here, who actually created the internship program for me to get there. Me and him had developed a great relationship there. And so he had ended up leaving the company. He was a treasurer at the time, and he left the company and moved to Greenbacker, the company that I currently work at. And me and him stayed in contact after he left for a few months, and he reached out to me. He goes, "Hey, I know your graduation date is coming up, and I know you're looking for full-time work. I'm building out our treasury team here. I think this would be a great place for you. Put your application in, you interview and meet the people, and it will go from there." And then I did exactly that, and the rest is history. But it sounds pretty linear, but there were a lot of mistakes, a lot of recalibrations, and everything along the way. And a huge value add was making sure I listened to my mentors and I got involved in events like this. I did a lot of events like this, coming on career events, listening to professionals. When they put their emails in and they said, "Hey, respond to me on LinkedIn," I would reach out to them like, "Hi, my name is Taizhier. This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm interested in." And they would facilitate connections with me and other people. And I started to get my name out. And then in my spare time, with my skills that I developed from just my own personal study, understanding business and finance, I connected with a lot of business owners as well. So in the meantime, when I was in between jobs throughout college, I would work for independent business owners in the finance space and kind of utilize my skills that way to just build and do more connections. And that actually, at the time, let me be the president of a stock investment club where we invested in a whole portfolio of stocks and actually got a, I believe, a 47% return ROI right in the beginning of the pandemic when stocks are going crazy. That was wild. That was a huge strike on my back. I was like, yeah, that was amazing. And also become a president of a huge financial literacy program that I created from scratch and taught a whole bunch of high school students about financial literacy and gifted them with internship opportunities at the company that I was working at and to participate in some international investments myself. So really the biggest thing was for me was being engaged. I think that especially in the time that we're in with the access that we have to social media and everything else, things can become intimidating and you can feel as if you have to be perfect, that you have to meet all of these qualifications before you do anything. You don't. You just have to be engaged. Make sure you're working on your soft skills. So it's the little things that we don't think of. And I noticed this with my generation, even my younger siblings and cousins. As time goes by, especially with social media, we're constantly on our phones. So just basic conversation etiquette, like, hey, if you're talking to someone, put your phone down. If you are on Zoom with someone, if you're talking to them, open up your camera, let them see you so you can see them so they can get a feel for you, because that was the biggest thing during the pandemic. There weren't a lot of physical interviews. It was all online. So you had to push and try to make a connection with someone, which is difficult through a camera screen because, you know, when we turn the screens off, we go back to our daily lives. So I made sure I was fresh on my soft skills, that I pushed myself, that I was inquisitive, and that I asked questions and did things that I didn't want to do. There are a lot of projects that I said yes to that I didn't really want to do. A lot of meetings that I didn't really want to sit on because I didn't feel like it. I want to do other things. But I said, you know what, this is contributing to my future. So I need to make sure I'm fully present in this moment to go ahead and do that. And that's what I did. That was a long spiel, but yeah.
No, that's fantastic. And thank you so much for sharing your, personal story. I mean, we all have different pathways to get to where we are today. So really appreciate it. Can you maybe describe one of your quote unquote recalibrations that you experience in your career journey? I always find that you get more learnings out of the recalibrations versus when everything goes according to plan, so yeah.
Of course. So especially during the beginning of my college career, I was very outspoken. I very much wanted to share my opinion on every topic, and I still am to an extent, but I learned when to just listen, because a situation had happened where, and I'm not gonna get into the super specific details, but I had basically said too much before I fully understood what was going on, and I made myself look like a complete fool. And that was because of my own arrogance and not reading the room and understanding the context behind things. I just felt like, hey, I have something to say, I wanted to say it. So that made me realize to start listening more before adding my input and making sure when I'm saying something, I'm understanding who is my audience? How will they actually receive my message before I say it? I know how I feel. I know what I'd like to get across, but who is my audience? Who are they? What is their relevance to the topic or situation that we're in? And how is what I'm going to say going to affect them and everybody else and their perception of me, which is an abstract thing. They say you shouldn't care, but your reputation is very important. It's very important that you are known for and lead with the values that actually are consistent for you. You don't ever want to make a mistake and make a big blunder and let that become your entire reputation, because a lot of the times you don't get that back. So situations like that, situations like me spending more time hanging out and doing other stuff when I should have been studying, times when I should have been at stronger, bigger career events, and I decided, hey, I want to go over here and do this when I should have been here. Like, one of my biggest regrets at that time, not anymore, was there was an accounting club on campus, and I had a professor that I was really cool with. He would always tell me, hey, join the accounting club, join the accounting club. But I wasn't interested. I wasn't interested. I thought it was boring. I thought everything they did was kind of boring. I wouldn't really care to. But then came to find out, all of them they all had internships at accounting firms as first year college students. That same year, I looked at myself when they were telling me, so I was talking to my classmates, and they were like, hey, I'm starting at, I believe it was Deloitte. I'm like, huh? They're like, yeah, I'm starting internship. I was like, how? They're like, the accounting club that you never joined. I said, okay. So situations like that made me start to become more aware of everything that I was doing and pay more attention to everything that was happening around me, and making sure I was getting involved in a meaningful and respectful way to get to that place that I wanted to go to.
Awesome. Now I'd like to give an opportunity to any of the students or alum in the room who might have any questions for our speaker.
And actually, before you guys ask me questions, I want to give you a preface, because I spoke a lot about my background, but I didn't really speak too much about what I actually do today. So I'm a treasury analyst in corporate treasury. So what treasury is kind of exactly what the word sounds like, treasury. So what you do in treasury is you manage a company's treasure, right? And it sounds abstract, it sounds fancy, high level, and it is. But think about it like this. Everybody is and this is a anecdote that I'm stealing from Ken Thomas, which is our department head, our treasurer. Everybody is a treasurer in their own way, in the sense that you're managing liquidity. You're looking at your bank accounts every day. You're looking at your credit cards to see what you have during the bill. You're looking at your statements to see how much money do I have coming in, how much money do I have going out, what do I know I'm going to need to pay for over the next few months, and am I going to be able to do this, and do I have all the proper tools to be able to stay afloat financially? That is essentially what a corporate treasury professional does, but just for a corporation instead of yourself. So high level, my day is spent on doing a million different things every single day. And I know it's a cliche saying, but every day of my job is different. But the overarching theme is liquidity management, making sure that we have enough cash to meet all of our deadlines as a company. And as an investment company, that's extremely important, because when you're buying assets and you sign agreements, you have payments on schedule. If you miss payments on schedule, that can result in fees, penalties, or possibly losing the deal and the capital that you already committed to the deal, depending on the structure. So it's extremely important for us to make sure we always have cash to meet all of our needs, paying our employees, paying our suppliers, staying in compliance. It is a imperative that we're focused on this 24/7. So every one of my days is different. Some of my days I spend it doing completely technical work, from cash forecasting, reading lengthy legal agreements, setting up a lot of our banking information, reconciling cash and transactions, and doing stuff like that. And then other times spent with internal stakeholders, having conversations on what are our high level strategies as a business, and making sure from a treasury standpoint, do we have everything we need to support that? So do we have the proper banking relationships? Do we have the proper bank accounts set up to be able to do this? Do we have the proper access to insurance for us to go on and take on these deals, so that in case anything goes wrong, we can still be made whole and not lose $30 million that we invested in the deal? That even when we go out and take out loans, are we set from an interest rate perspective that, hey, we took out a $50 million loan, will we be able to pay this loan back? Because if we default on that, that can be extremely, extremely dangerous and negative for our company. So making sure that at all times, all of our stuff is ready to go, and then meeting with outside business partners to see if they are a worthy counterparty for us to work with, and if it's going to work for our strategy and what we're trying to do. So every single one of my days are different, but they all lead up to the overarching theme of making sure that we can properly manage liquidity so that we can keep our employees paid, stay on schedule for all of our payments, and grow as a company. So I just wanted to give that little preface about what I do, because most at least I didn't know when I was in college. I didn't really know what treasury was. I never heard of it. All I knew was, okay, you have accounting jobs and you have finance jobs. And I knew what accounting was, and I had an abstract understanding of finance, but I never heard of treasury. And treasury is an excellent field, especially for young professionals getting in to learn a high level skill set. The reason that I chose it was because I am very much a self starter, very much an independent thinker, and I wanted to be able to do work where I was going to be a core part of a company's survival, so I could get a clear understanding of how does the system that this company uses to make money, how does this system work? What are the inner workings of it? And how do I make sure it continues to work? Because I knew that would be an extremely valuable skill throughout my lifetime for jobs and such. And then for myself, for one day when I want to start a company, understanding, hey, how do I put together a winning system and keep it afloat financially so that I can continue to grow, build employees, and keep a company? Because you can start a company, you can make money, that's the thing. But can you keep your company? Can you sustain? Can you grow? Can you continue? That is the real test of the value behind your system. So I wanted to be a part of that. I wanted to know how to do that. And so we pursued corporate treasury.
Awesome. And thank you for explaining it because I had no idea what what some of your job does.
Of course, I'm happy to.
Awesome. So yeah, any questions from the group? You can either unmute yourself and ask, or you can put your question in the chat. Up to you.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, this is Blandine Nguesson. And yes, I really admire your all the steps you took to be who you are today. And my question will be, I see that you did so many things, and I would like to know, what do you think about accounting as a major? What do you took from that? If you have to do something else, will you come back and do accounting again? And why?
Oh, yeah. So, and I'm really glad you asked this question because this is something I missed when I was doing my initial introduction of my backstory. So when I first started college, my major was marketing. That's what I focused on for about a month or two. And then after conversations with my family and some of my counselors on campus, I realized that for what I wanted to do, accounting would have been a more appropriate major, especially because of my own free time. I was studying money and personal finance a lot. So I think with accounting, so for me personally, and this is just my truth, no offense to the other accounting majors here, but I found accounting very boring when I was actually doing my degree. It was very much a struggle to get through some of my classes because it felt a bit mundane going through the journal entries and the transactions. But some people love it, and if you love it, go for it. But that just wasn't me. I had a more dynamic personality, and I just wanted to do something that was a bit more dynamic. But the reason that I continued to do my degree was because accounting is a major foundation to understand the financial field in general. If you get a degree in accounting, you can get an accounting job, you can get a finance job, you can get an investments job, you can get a financial planning and analysis job. There are so many things that you can do because it gives you the foundation to understand financial statements, understand financial documents, how to understand transactions, what is the actual layout of these things, and how do they affect your accounts. So even though I wasn't particularly ecstatic about my degree, it helps me when I view our transactions and I look at our legal documents and I have conversations with our accounting team about how things are supposed to go. I can intimately understand what they're getting at and understand the implications from an accounting perspective and what this truly means when it comes to taxes as well. Okay, if we did this transaction this way, how is it going to affect us from a tax perspective? Is there going to be a tax liability? Do I need to pull in our tax team to review this before we go ahead and do this transaction? It's a major foundational tool that you can utilize to go any route in finance. And that's not just corporate finance. You might want to work in a role where you're working in wealth management, right? Bookkeeping for wealthy individuals or families or institutions. So accounting is what I like to say, the stepping stone to anything you want to do in the financial space. Accounting is a great major for that. So if you're not 100% sure what you want to do, but you know you want to work in some facet of the financial space, accounting is a great major to be able to do that.
Thank you very much. This
You're
is
welcome.
inspiring and motivating. Thank you so much.
I'm happy to help.
Mhm.
Thanks so much for your question, Blendine. Does anyone else? Oh yeah, Rustam, you have a question. Go ahead.
I do. Uh, if I have a really important question, which is if you have any advice for students who need like financial advice right now, what would you say? Because the question for me here is that currently I'm at BCC taking business management, and in the upcoming fall, I'll be doing entrepreneurship over at Baruch. And it's it's always been a dream of mine to start my own company, do my own thing. But the real issue, and I'm sure all of you know, is that starting a company is an extremely hard job. There's a lot of funding that's required, a lot of financing that's required. And the reason why I joined this breakout room is because I really need to know what steps, should I be taking to start building up some form of capital and to start, getting some sort of money acquired so I can continue with the plans that I have later on. Because, you can always have, the brightest idea ever, but if you don't have the necessary uh cash flow to actually start that, then you can't really do anything.
I got you. And just before I answer your question, if you don't mind me asking Wisdom, how old are you?
I currently just turned 20 like a week ago. So yes.
Okay, I got you. And I asked that because that was my exact sentiment when I was going through college. I didn't really want to work. I was like, hey, I want to start a company. I'm just here to learn some skills so I can go out and start a company. But you kind of touched on it. Starting a company is a very, very hard thing to do. And that's not to discourage you at all, because I want you to pursue what you feel is your purpose. So I can't tell you whether you should actually go and start a company or not. But what I can tell you is this: to start your ideas, because you may have one idea, and especially as someone with an entrepreneur mind, you probably have ideas that come up every other day. So let's say you pursue one and then you realize and you go down that path and say, hey, dang, this isn't going to work out. So now you want to go on to the next thing. Being able to do that sustainably is making sure that you're able to bring money in, regardless if the business succeeds or not. Because if you put everything into one operation and it doesn't succeed, well, that was everything. And now, and I'm not sure what your family situation is, but in an abstract sense, this is how I thought of it. I was like, hey, I don't want to just put everything here, not have anything else, because I'm like, if it doesn't work, then I'm on the street. And I'm like, hey, I don't want to be on the street. So I say this: I would tell you, if you're in college, I would say what I would do is I would minor in entrepreneurship, and I would major in a financial related field if that's what you like, that has a clear job set. So like I was telling Blind Being, accounting, majoring in accounting and minoring in entrepreneurship, so that you can pursue all of your business goals that you want to and take and go and do your operations. Because at the end of the day, a good idea is really only a system and funding away from being the next big thing. But there's also a lot of steps in between that. So I say for you, if you're concerned with being able to afford your lifestyle and financial companies and everything, I would say get a strong skill set, and that could be in finance, and that could be in something else. But we in finance, me and women, that's what I live and breathe. So I can tell you this: get a strong skill set in financial. So that could be you being an accountant, that could be you being a corporate treasury professional, that could be you being a financial planning analysis professional, that could be you being an investment professional. Get a strong skill set so that it can function like an ATM for you, so that you can always have something that's bringing you money in. So 9 to 5, you work, you pay the bills, pay society, pay your taxes, and with your weekends and your other time, you're developing your ideas and you're taking them to the next level. You're taking these meetings, you're going to the banks, you're meeting with potential investment partners. But the thing is, when you go to them, you already have a job and you have money coming in, so there's not a sense of desperation in your voice. Because oftentimes with especially young people in entrepreneurship, you get the idea and you feel like, hey, I'm smart, I can do this. But there are so many steps in between that. And for someone to take you seriously, especially, you have to think about a customer, right? So when they see you, they want to see, is this guy's business professional? Do they have a system that's going to ensure that when I spend my money with this group, I'm going to get what I need from it, right? So they're looking at that. They want to see that. And then you're going to need funding, right? So that could either come from investors and that could come from banks. Banks want They want to see a templated business that with contracts and everything that is ready to go, that is they can say without a shadow of a doubt, because on the bank's end, when they give you a loan, they have to go through an approval process and internal committee. When they go and present in front of their committee, they want to have a strong thing to say, hey, we want to give a loan to Rustom's custom detailing, right? And this is what the company has. They have these contracts. This is their system. This is their location. They have this much in revenue. They have this is their management. This is their background. They want to be confident that they can do that. An investor as well. They're giving you their money for you to go out and spend and make more money. So they're like, hey, I want to know when I put my money somewhere with someone that there's going to actually be a value add. I'm going to get a return on my investment. And at the very least, I'm going to get my money back. So, and able to do that, you have to show them that you can do it. And that comes from your compassion, your conviction behind the idea, how much you develop it. And then a big part of it that some people may ask you is because, especially if with a new business loan, you may have to personally guarantee that. So, do you have a source of income that can support if this business doesn't work out? You can still pay the bank that money back. And then also, which is more of an undertone, the sense on your voice. I know I'm not sure if you've seen Shark Tank or not, but a lot of them come in extremely desperate, like, hey, I lost my car, I lost my house, I don't have anything. I need you guys to give me some money. And most of the time when that comes up, they say no. Why? Because they know that person is under desperation and they're not in a proper mind state to get a think critically to evolve the organization to where it needs to go so they can get their money back. So I tell you that, well, what I would do is, which I did, which I would go and major in something where I can get a sure, good, high income career and use my spare time to go out and develop my ideas. Because it could be a year or two. It could be 1 year, you start working, you have some money in your pocket, and then you develop one of the ideas. And then by the end of the year, you're ready to go, you're ready to take off, business makes $1 million, right? But in the meantime, you have to stay afloat. And it's ideal to have a strong profession that can keep some money in your pocket. But again, this is all up to you. This is your personal choice, but that is my take on it because that's something.
And just to chime in here, Baruch is a great school for entrepreneurship. I would highly recommend that when you attend Baruch, you go and introduce yourself to Marlene and Scott at the Field Center of Entrepreneurship. They have a wide range of activities and programming for students that are interested in entrepreneurship. So while you're finishing your bachelor's, you can really test out if this is the thing that you want to do. And if you have any ideas that you want to expand upon, those will be your people to share your ideas with, workshop them, so that when you do graduate, when you do have the funding, you can, start your business if that's what you want to do.
I see. Thank you.
Awesome. Any other questions? Yeah, Oscar.
Yeah. So, hi guys. I'm Oscar. I attend Baruch too. I'm a sophomore right now. I'm going to be a rising junior. And listening to Taizhier's story is really it really hits home because it's super similar to what I did, and recalibration is definitely the right word. So when I attended high school, and I don't want to sound like pretentious when I say these things, but I attended a specialized high school in Bronx Science. And when I decided to look for colleges, I decided on Baruch. But when I got there, I decided that it isn't really what I wanted to do. So I took a step back and I went to Queensborough Community College after a gap semester. And I tried my hand at different things. I did this sales mentee at a real estate firm. I did a little bit of marketing, a little bit of entrepreneurship at Blackstone Launchpad, and also just these little things here and there just to boosting up my skill set, like the soft skills you talked about. But I'm really struggling with the next step, the next thing that I need to do. Like when you said, oh, your peers are getting these prestigious internships at these big four companies, these big tech companies, and I'm a sophomore just finding my way through these things. And I'm doing these interviews, these initial interviews through the phone and whatnot. and attending these networking events like at the New York City CEO Council. And but I'm just trying to find that big break that I'm waiting for, essentially. And I'm just wondering what advice you have because I noticed we have very similar paths.
Got you. So basically, just in sum, I want to make sure I understand and I respond to your question correctly. You're doing everything you need to do, and you're like, hey, I'm doing all of this stuff. How do I make sure I'm ready for my big break? Is that what you're asking me?
Exactly.
Okay. So, all right. I'm actually glad you asked that. Got 4 points to help you ready for that. So, all right. Number one, which you're probably already doing based on the stuff that you're doing, make sure you're dreaming big. Make sure no matter what's in front of you, you're keeping a big vision ahead of you, because it's very easy to get caught in the day-to-day process of life and then the red tape around things like, this person didn't respond, I can't do anything, maybe I shouldn't do this. Keep a big vision in your head, because that's what's going to keep fueling you when you're in some of your lower moments and you're like, I don't know, that's what's going to keep fueling you. So number one, make sure you're dreaming big. Number two, as you're doing all of these things, and you touched on it, the importance of those soft skills, especially because you'll be, for the opportunities that you're looking to get, you'll be interfacing with not just your peers, but a lot of people that are older than you, an older generation. So something that you have to be mindful of, and this is just as us being younger people and being, because I believe you're in college, so you're Gen Z, being Gen Z, a lot of, because of the way we grew up with social media and technology, soft skills end up being not our first nature to us. So making sure you're always saying thank you to people, saying hello. And when you're talking, actually talk to people and build relationships from a value for value perspective, not like, hey, I'm here to pick your brain and get everything from you and give you nothing in return. Talk to people, have genuine conversation, try to build genuine connection and make something authentic so that when you leave the room and then things come up and opportunities come along, someone's going to think of you and say, hey, I remember I talked to that guy, Oscar. He was amazing. We had a great conversation. He was cool. And that's going to help you stay on people's radar. Stay curious, right? So even if something is maybe not directly what you specifically want to do, keep it in your radar. If it comes up, you have some free time, let me check this out, because that may be the thing that ends up taking you to the next level. So when I was at DRA Advisors and I was interning, I mainly was in the portfolio management department. I did my program was a rotational program where I went across the different service lines, worked with portfolio management the most, but did some work with the acquisitions team, the valuations team, and a little bit of treasury group. Treasury was my smallest amount of time for the rotation. I literally probably had like this orientation and maybe 1 or 2 days working with them. But that ended up being the career that I went into. And I'm glad, because I had a choice. I kind of did treasury or something else. And I was like, you know what, let me do treasury, especially this seems interesting. And the department had the relationship. Let me go and do this. So that was just me taking a simple moment and stepping outside of mine. Because I was kind of tunnel vision at the time. I was like, hey, I want to be in acquisition. That's all I care about. This is the closest thing to starting your own business and everything. But some said, hey, check out treasury. And then lo and behold, it's been my career that's been able to pay me and keep me steady, and facilitate a lot of opportunities for me over the last 2.5 years. So staying curious and keeping your eyes open. And then also, and this is something that is going to come with time, staying you. So being yourself. To an extent, every time you go somewhere, you get in a situation, there are rules of engagement for everywhere you go, which to get the most success out of something that you have to follow. So understand the rules of engagement, but always remain unique and remain yourself, respectfully, because again, those are things that stick out and make people want to associate with you, take a chance on you, because a lot of people are waiting to facilitate a connection to a young person that shows the qualities that they're able to receive that and actually make something out of it and not just make them waste their time. So continue to do everything you're doing, do those 4 things I said, and there's going to be ups and downs. I'm not going to give you an excuse like stay positive, because it's hard to do that all the time. But just remember, keep your eyes on your goals. And it doesn't have to always be super specific. Like I want to do this, I want to work at this company, I want to be making this exact amount of money. It may take you some time to get there. You may go through some detours on the road to get there, because I sure did. You asked me when I was 17, 18, 19, 20, I knew exactly what I was going to do at 25. I'll be 25 this year. And a lot of those things, the road to get there was extremely different than I planned, but I'm still in the way here. So just keep an open mind, keep yourself afloat, and do those four things. So again, make sure you're dreaming big, making sure you're maintaining your soft skills, be mindful of your soft skills, staying curious, don't turn your nose up at things because it wasn't necessarily what you were interested in, because that just might be your golden ticket. And then making sure within spaces, maintaining respect, but being yourself, because that's what's going to make you stay there.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We have time for one more question. Rusam, go ahead.
I have another question. It's about what Oscar said earlier about what's the next step. Because I have a similar question as well, because just like him, I also graduated from Bronx Science, and then now I'm going to BCC and I'll be transferring to Baruch. But the question that I really have is that you always go to these meetings, right? And then you hear the theoretical sort of advice and all sorts of things where it's always about, set your goals, keep in mind, things you want to do, make sure to do this, make sure to do that. And, while that's all wonderful, my real question comes down to like, when do I start getting into the actual practical part of doing certain things? Like, I want to start my own company, right? So how do I go about and get my trademark for the company I'm working for? How do I turn that slowly into something like an LLC, or how do I, how do I like start getting into the actual field without, a lot of this, I don't want to say like jumping around, but that's just how I kind of feel like, because I've been to so many of these meetings at this point that, a lot of the information that I receive is often the same.
I got you. So you have to be patient, and you have to make sure you're forever a student, because I can hear the frustration in your voice in the sense that you're like, hey, I'm ready to just go ahead and get stuff started, because that's how I felt. But even in, so what you just said, let me tell you why you have to make sure you're remaining a student. So when you're running and starting a business, your trademark and getting your LLC and all of that is kind of, in the grand scheme of things, depending on things, kind of the last thing on the totem pole and one of the least important things you need to do. To start a business, you need to know what can you do that makes money that can be consistent. So I have like half of my family is from Jamaica. I grew up in a neighborhood with a lot of immigrants. They weren't focused on getting their LLCs and everything perfect and getting their trademark. They were focused on, hey, do I have a skill that can make me money? So I'd say for you, so that's what, if you really want to get to the next level faster, that's what you need to be thinking about. The LLCs, the trademarks, the structures, the tax loopholes, and all of that, all of the fancy stuff that they put on Instagram and so on, all of that stuff comes after you actually have something that produces revenue and you can retain customers. So if you want to be an entrepreneur, there are different roles you can fill, but you're either going to be the rainmaker of your business. That's the person that's bringing in customers, bringing in revenue, bringing in clients to keep the thing afloat, or you're going to be the servicer in the business. That's the person that's actually doing the work that keeps the business afloat. So you got to decide which one you want to be. Rainmaker, you're going to be doing a whole bunch of meetings, meeting people, partnerships. That'll be all day, every day for you. Vetting potential partnership and customer opportunities. You're going to be the servicer. That's going to be you doing technical work. So someone that has, for example, a tax prep business, they have to wear two hats, but for the most part, they got to be a servicer and actually do the tax returns over there. They can have meetings and stuff, but if they keep having meetings, they're never going to actually be able to do the work that they're being paid for. So you have to see what you want to do. What is your idea? What can you do that you you can create a unique space in and differentiate yourself from other people in the market, and you can make money, but not just make money like, hey, I can make money one time, right? Because I could just go down the road and mow lawns and make money for the day. But do I understand the region that I'm in and the other landscaping companies in a place? Am I going to be able to compete with them, or am I just going to be able to have a lawnmower and walk up and down the road and mow people lawn for $25? So you have to make sure you find something that, number one, makes money, and number two, that you can consistently make money and build a system around. That's the most important thing that you need to be focused on. So whatever it is, it could be, let's say you want to be in the phone case business, right? Understanding what are the inputs of this? What are raw materials that go into this? How can you get the raw materials? What things that you need to speak to suppliers and manufacturers of these things. What do they want? What do you need to entice them with to want to even produce these phone cases for you to go out and sell to people? That's what your focus needs to be on. Is the LLC, the trademarks, and all of that comes after you have something that makes money consistently. But you could file as many LLCs as you want, but if you're not making any money, that's just legal fees you pay the state for no reason. So you focus on what is going to be your thing that's going to make you money, and that's what you need to keep your head at, and making sure you're staying a student and listening and paying attention to everything around you. Because I know that exact feeling. That was my exact feeling, and I had to force myself to relax and focus on what was around so I could get ahead and get to the next level. So that's going to be what's going to be key for you based on what you just asked.
Excuse me, Miss Hamilton, I know that it's time.
Yes.
Can I just ask a favor to
Sure.
Mr. Green?
Yeah.
Can he be
Yes.
my mentor?
Oh, you're so sweet.
Can he be my
Thank you.
mentor? I need him.
It's very, very kind. Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, everybody, look, so my LinkedIn is my first name, my last name, just like this. Shoot me a request on LinkedIn. I'll accept. Shoot me a message just so I can know you are on the chat. I mean, we're on this meeting today and we'll chat, we'll talk, we'll get things done. I'm more than happy to talk with anyone and share any kind of expertise or value that I can, because I know what it feels like to be a CUNY student and to go to school in a community college kind of way and not stay on campus, and it's harder to make connections, harder to do things. So I'm with you. I'm here to help you guys. So add me on LinkedIn, shoot me a message. I'm happy to help. And I'm just glad that you were able to get value from this session today. That's an amazing thing for me. And I appreciate your compliment. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And thank you so much. Thank you for attending, everyone in the audience, but thank you so much, Taizhier, for providing inspirational words, words of wisdom, sharing a little bit about your career journey. As you mentioned, not everyone's career journey is the same. Sometimes you don't get directly from point A to point B. Sometimes you wind up, taking a circuitous route to where you want to go, but always, keep your head held high. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending. So now we're going to head back to the main room for our final words of wisdom, a couple of questions, and a wrap up. All right.
Awesome.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
guys.
Take care, everyone.